Hi, everyone. Welcome to Naturally Immune for Life. Thanks for joining me today. Um, let's take a spin on in the devil's chess game and see how far we can get with scientific based evidence before I get flagged, which I will try not to do. But first, I want to explain to you a little bit about how I work and how I've always worked for myself. And that can be found in my mission statement. And then I'm going to try to explain that to you in just one little story about SIBO. Okay, mission statement. My mission statement has always been based on 80-20. I don't go by who can afford to spend the most money on commercials. I don't go floating around groups to see what worked for someone and produce anecdotal evidence and all of that. No, that's not what I do, and that's not what I did. That's what I used to do way back in 2004 with my first website called FibroSmart. And ironically, if I had employed this method way back then, I would have been here a long time ago because I could have just reduced all of the supplements I had on that site down to the 20% that provide 80% of the benefit. So that's how I work. And that's always how I work in reducing complex information. So my role is 80-20. And in order for that role to work, you have to have a supreme good, and then you have to have a greater good. And how that came about, I'm not sure if this is actually true or not, or if this is just legend, but it's the Pareto principle, and I forget his full name, an Italian, long time ago, noticed through observation, human observation, that 20% of his pea plants produced 80% of his crop. And it's a principle that works across the board pretty much in everything. So, medicine already has a supreme good, which is do no harm, and that was established thousands of years ago. So that's a supreme good. And then you have to consider the greater good. The greater good is the greatest common good. So you have to go outside of yourself to find the greatest common good. And you have to go outside of yourself to find the greatest the supreme good. That's not how our system works. Not in the not in any way, shape, or form can you identify this principle with anything in our system. So that's 80%. There's a gold standard. It's 80% efficacy, the medical threshold for certainty and gold standard of care. 80% ease of use and compliance. Can the majority reasonably achieve this? And 80% accessibility cost. Can the majority reasonably access this? Some countries operate on that principle more than others. Ours does not. So, I'm also a proponent of the scientific method and open source science as both within a moral framework where the method and mission employed which achieved the greatest advances to mankind throughout history. So, what that means is that when I say I'm going to introduce science-based evidence, I'm going to my taxpayer-funded library, the NIH, to retrieve that evidence, and then I'm going to cross-check it against the human outcome. And all of these standards in the mission statement: efficacy, ease of use, accessibility, and then on the top is 80% safety. Do no harm. And for that reason, maybe I have one supplement in my entire favorite supplements that's a synthetic, and that would be vitamin C. Everything else that I have, take, are food-based products. So I'm just going to demonstrate this in one instance, and that will be SIBO. A long time ago, SIBO was characterized by 3 different types of SIBO. Naturally, one of those was probably the most detrimental, and that turned out to be H2S SIBO. So I found one of the country's leading experts on H2S, Dr. Henry Lin. I read everything he wrote, and then I followed every reference he included, and then I learned everything I could about H2S. Now, ironically, one of the tests that they used to use in pediatrics to determine H2S, or to determine small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, was a ratio of 2 vitamins, B12 and folate, I believe. If I'm wrong about that, excuse me, because that was a long time ago. Ironically, the antidote for H2S poisoning is an IV infusion of B12. Now, did you have to get way into the weeds and learn everything about H2S to know all that? If you're out on your farm and you just got overcome by hydrogen sulfide gas in your barn, no. You're going to get out of your barn, call an ambulance, and then go get what they give you, which just happens to be, I don't know if that's still their preferred antidote, a IV infusion of B12. I don't know, but a long time ago, that was what it was. Secondly, H2S. It's a pollutant. It's a dangerous pollutant. It can paralyze your olfactory nerves. Your olfactory nerves are essentially part of your digestion. When they do that, you can no longer sense danger and you're going to succumb. So H2S was determined to be in the small intestine. So naturally, what you would be looking for, you would reduce those three types down to the most dangerous type, and then you would be looking for what alleviates either the production or the accumulation of H2S. It's that simple. And then you would look in everything from clinical applications to industrial applications, and then it turns out that it's just a simple chemical formula that I think found in across applications from paper milling to air freshener. And it's the same thing. I think in the end, it just drops an electron, and that's the end of H2S gas, hydrogen sulfide gas. So, do you really need to know all that? Do you really need to know all that? Or do you just, you're growing peas and you want to get rid of the plants that aren't producing and then include more of the plants that are producing. Very simple. And that's how I work, and that's how I always worked. So I would go across thousands upon thousands of pages of research and then reduce it down to the 20% that has the most benefit to the greatest number of people. So sue me. And AI can't do that, by the way. Cannot do that. Because it can't determine a true from a false. And it can't determine a supreme good without somebody programming it in there. And it doesn't, that's not what happens. And it can't do it without a human. So this week's post is, would your gut hold the key to a longer, healthier life? And this just comes a summary. This is just a summary from another article I found, and I will put the link, and then I included all of their sources. And then, or the most relevant sources. And I'm just putting a summary to this particular article that I found. And as you get older, your gut microbiome becomes less diverse and more inflammatory, contributing to a process scientists call inflammaging. And by the way, I'd also like to say, I read the final paragraph in their article. And I'm still betting that if they read that paragraph on YouTube, they wouldn't get flagged. But if I read that paragraph on YouTube, I would get flagged. That's just my guess. The human gut, even though we were saying the same thing, and we were providing equal sources of where we got that information. The human gut is far more than a digestive organ. It is home to trillions of microorganisms that form the gut microbiome, a complex ecosystem that influences digestion, metabolism, immunity, inflammation, and even brain function. Emerging research suggests that the health and diversity of this microbial community may play an important role in determining how well we age. A 2024 study supported by the National Institute on Aging found that older adults with more diverse and unique gut microbiomes were more likely to live longer than those whose microbiomes remained unchanged. These findings add to growing evidence that maintaining a healthy gut may be one of the keys to healthy aging and longevity. Research on centenarians, people who live to 100 years of age or older, have revealed that they often possess gut microbiomes that are more diverse and balanced than those of younger, elderly individuals. Studies have found that centenarians tend to have higher levels of beneficial bacteria, including Lactobacillus, Akkermansia, Roseburia, Methanobrevibacter, and members of the Clostridalis and Ruminococci groups. Many of these microbes produce short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate, acetate, propionate, which helps maintain the integrity of the intestinal barrier, regulate immune responses, reduce inflammation, and support overall metabolic health. These functions are increasingly recognized as important factors in preventing age-related disease. One of the largest studies discussed in the review came from Japan in 2017. I inserted this from another story, so I just want you to know this is from another source. Researchers examined it, which I have provided a link for you to get to that source. Researchers examined 441 healthy individuals ranging from newborns to centenarians in order to track how Bifido species shift over time. The study found that Bifido longum remained the dominant species throughout life, with detection rates of nearly 88% across all age groups. This suggests that B. longum may be one of the core microbial species supporting human gut health from infancy through extreme old age. As people age, however, the gut microbiome often becomes less diverse and more prone to imbalance, a condition known as dysbiosis. This can contribute to increased intestinal permeability, commonly referred to as leaky gut, allowing bacteria and inflammatory compounds to enter the bloodstream. The resulting chronic low-grade inflammation, often called inflammaging, has been linked to many conditions associated with aging, including cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, frailty, and neurodegenerative disorders. Animal studies have further demonstrated the connection between the gut microbiome and aging by showing that transferring microbes from older mice to younger mice can promote inflammatory aging processes, while transferring microbes from younger mice to older animals can improve metabolic immune function. And this is the transfer studies that they've done in many, at least in 5 pillars of conditions. And you might also be interested to know that also includes starvation. You can actually transfer starvation from sick mice to healthy mice. And I also include the development of that all throughout my site. So fortunately, lifestyle choices can help support a healthier gut microbiome throughout life. A diet rich in fiber, fruits, vegetables, legumes, and fermented foods such as kefir and yogurt promotes beneficial microbial growth and short-chain fatty acid production. Studies have also shown that dietary patterns such as the Mediterranean diet can improve gut health while reducing frailty and supporting cognitive functions in older adults. In addition, emerging research suggests that probiotics, prebiotics, and human milk oligosaccharides may help increase beneficial bacteria and improve markers associated with healthy aging. Together, these findings suggest that nurturing the gut microbiome may be one of the most effective strategies for promoting longevity, reducing inflammation, and maintaining health as we grow older. So, the source of that is the gut microbiome, the key to healthy aging. One of their key sources was the gut microbiome pattern reflects healthy aging and predicts survival in humans. And another one, a human milk oligosaccharide alters the microbiome, circulating hormones, and metabolites in a randomized controlled trial of older adults. And then finally, gut microbes of healthy seniors, which includes the Japanese study, or the review, not the study. The review came from Japan. So then, I cannot read this part here for you, but it is in more info. And this is how, of all of the things going wrong in dysbiosis, how did that get reduced down to the greatest factor, having the greatest influence on the greatest number of people, which would be 80-20. If you have a supreme good, which is of all the risk factors in life, how can we eliminate as many of them as possible, as who did, by reducing it to a hierarchy of risk factors? And then how can we help the greatest number of people in the easiest way possible while spending the least amount of our time and our money and increasing their autonomy? That would be the smart thing to do, right? Okay, well, allowing their autonomy, right? If you're on a super highway, you want to try to get as many people into this particular group with the least amount of chronic risk factors as possible while not harming them. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, I'm not allowed to read that. So if you want to read that particular part, you're just going to have to go to my site and read it. It's in more info and it's in its own little paragraph. And you can determine for yourself what ended up being the greatest factor that eventually won the Nobel Prize in 2025. Okay, that's about it for today. And I will see you next time. And I thank you so much for your time. And I thank you so much for your support. So we'll see you next time. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.